loving, generous, compassionate people who know that America is better than what is happening, are willing to put your voices and your hearts and your feet and your actions to work to make sure that we have justice. I thank you so very much. So some of you know that I went to the Bureau of Prisons facility on Saturday, where 206 immigrants had been transferred from the Texas border to SeaTac, Washington, just south of Seattle. I demanded on Friday, my staff and I demanded entry. We got entry on Saturday, and we were able to visit with the 174 women. There were 32 men that I have not met with yet, but I did get to meet with all of the 174 women. They are all, almost all asylum seekers. They are, about 50% of them were mothers. They are from 16 different countries. They come from as far away as Eritrea and China, and the vast majority are from the 4 countries of Cuba, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. They are heartbroken, and we are heartbroken. And to stand with these women and hear their stories was devastating. It was devastating. And I promised them that I would continue to tell you about them. And I told them about you in the sense that I told them that there were people across this country who do not want this to happen, who know that this is wrong and are standing up for them. And I told them that we would do everything in our power to get them immediately released, to get them credible fear hearings, and to reunite them with their children. So I was with them for about 3 hours, and I just want to tell you a little bit about what they told me so that you can hear it directly from me. Number one, they said that in a federal Bureau of Prisons facility, that this was the first time they felt like they were treated like human beings. In a federal Bureau of Prisons facility. So just imagine what that means about the places that they were held before. Remember that Federal Bureau of Prisons facilities are government owned and operated. They have unionized employees, and they are public facilities, not the privately for-profit contracted facilities that ICE and CBP use. That is a huge difference. And that's why I have a bill called the Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act that says we are not using private for-profit detention centers anymore. We need to get back to the public. What they told me about the facilities that they were taken to, they called them nicknames like the Icebox and Dog Pound. Icebox because they were so frigidly cold temperatures, and many of the women had crossed the Rio Grande, came across the river soaking wet, and then were put in this freezer with no blankets, no mattresses, and no clean drinking water. No clean drinking water, just a sink with dirty chlorinated water. The dog pound was called that because they are kennels and cages. They look like a dog pound. That's the other facility that they were held in. And these women who came seeking asylum were put into rooms. Initially, they turned themselves in, they were with their children, and they were deceived. One woman said to me, I was deceived, and many of them have said this. They were told that their children were going to be taken for a bath. They were told that they were going to be taken out to have a photograph. They were told that they were going to go to court. And then when they went and they came back, their children were not there anymore. Not a one of these women had been able to even say goodbye to their children. And not a one of them knew where their children were. And they had been in detention, about half of them, for over a month. Over a month. and they didn't know where their children were. Some of them had been given slips of paper from ICE that had their name and a couple of their and their children's name on that little tiny slip of paper, except one woman said to me, "These are not my children. The children that are listed here are not my children." They were, when they realized that their kids had been taken away from them, forcibly removed from them, they literally were, some of them were sitting in the room right next door to where their children were. They could hear them screaming for them. They could hear them screaming for them. And some of the children were as young as 1 year old. 1 year old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. These are kids who should be with their parents. And the stories of why these women came to the United States of America were everything that we have to make sure Americans across this country understand. These are not rapists, they're not murderers, they're not animals, they're not gang members. They are women seeking safety for their children. Yes. One woman who was from El Salvador, her oldest child had been shot and killed by gang members. Her second child had been shot and paralyzed by gangs, and her third child, the only child that was still alive and not paralyzed, she felt she had to bring to safety. So she did what every mother would do, and I am a mother, and I know we have mothers here and fathers here who understand that we will do anything it takes to bring our children to safety. That is what asylum seeking is. Is that right? We bring our children to safety. Another woman told me her story and said that she had, her husband had raped a 12-year-old child. And so she was trying to take her children to safety because he was threatening her life and her children's lives. These stories went on and on and on. Another woman whose child was blind, she had one child who was blind. She left that child behind because she wanted to bring her seeing child to America, and because she knew that the blind child wouldn't be able to make the journey. These are the stories of the women, and I have got to believe with every fiber of my being that if the American people could listen to their stories and hear these women speak, that they would open their hearts and they would say, let them loose, reunite them with their children, and let us make sure that the United States of America stands for moral values. Told me as well. They told me that they were prosecuted in mass prosecutions in courts, 75, 100 people at a time. They said that they were taken into rooms, they were given some headphones so that they could have interpretation, but they were never allowed to say anything to the judges. Not a single one of them had had what we call a credible fear hearing, which is the beginning of the immigration process, right? You come in, you ask for asylum, you turn yourself in, you get a credible fear hearing. That used to be the process. And in fact, there was a program called the Family Support, Case Management Support Program that was a partnership between nonprofit organizations and ICE, where legal resources and community supports would be given to these individuals so they could understand what the process was. In some cases, they realized after talking to attorneys that they actually didn't have an asylum case, and in some cases they even went away because they realized they weren't going to win. But for those who stayed and wanted the process to continue, they actually had a really high rate of success with this program of bringing them in when they needed to be there and being able to get all the resources and supports that they needed. Well, guess what? Trump and Jeff Sessions came into office, and I guess this program was just too humane, too cost efficient, too morally effective for them to keep it going, and they shut it down and even paid a penalty to shut this program down. These programs, these are the ways that we should be treating people. There are alternatives to incarceration, and let us be clear that this is incarceration. It is not detention, it is incarceration. They are being held in jails, they are being held in cages, and we cannot allow this to continue. And so these women are, they are finally getting to see attorneys. We took down names of all the women that we met with. We got most of them, and we've connected them to legal resources. finally the Bureau of Prisons is going to be allowing attorneys to come in, and we're going to try to preserve their voting. And yesterday, some of you know that I took over the Judiciary Committee hearing because I sit on the Judiciary Committee. And I'm on the Immigration Subcommittee, and I am tired of not having hearings about the things that really matter, the things that define us, the things that define who we are as a country, the things that are about the soul of America. That is what we're talking about. We're not talking about immigration policy here. We are talking about the soul of our country, and we should be clear that that is what is at stake. And so Chairman Goodlatte didn't like it much, and he didn't want us to have this discussion, but my colleagues, my Democratic colleagues, Ranking Member Nadler, others on the Judiciary Committee came, Jamie Raskin, David Cicilline, others came, and they supported the charge to have a hearing, to have Jeff Sessions come before us, to testify before us about what is happening. And then yesterday was a busy day because you know that in addition, we got into a little bit of good trouble with Representative John Lewis, with Luis Gutierrez, with Jan Schakowsky, with Jimmy Gomez from California. About 8 of us members of Congress and a whole bunch of wonderful activists went out and we tried to get arrested. We did. We blocked the entrance to the Customs and Border Patrol facility. We shut it down. We shut it down, and then when they wouldn't arrest us there, we moved into the street. We shut the street down. And then when they wouldn't arrest us there, we realized that we had already been effective in bringing attention to this issue. And you know what I say? Shame on people who will arrest women and children at the border, but won't arrest members of Congress. I see that my very good colleague and friend, Representative Engel, is here, and I want to let him speak, but I want to end by saying this. Every single thing that we have ever gained in this country for the rights, the freedom, and the liberation of every single one of us has taken a fight. It has taken courage. It has taken strength. And these women that were in the prison that I went to see, some people call them victims, I call them survivors. I call them fierce. I call them courageous. And what they are asking of you and me is to not forget about them. They are asking that we make sure we do everything in our power to stand up, to remember them with everything we do, every fiber of our body, and to remember that it is love and generosity that always wins, not scarcity and fear. But it is also organizing. And so I want to thank NARAL Pro-Choice America for everything. I want to thank all the organizations that are here, and I want to say that you need to help us to continue to keep the movement alive, to continue to demand that these women are released immediately, that they are reunited with their families, and that they get